Thanks everybody for joining. This is very much a private webinar, obviously in light of the recent news, two general topics causing somewhat of an influx in activity at the moment. Of course, the ongoing topic around the withdrawal of the Golden Visa program, and as of my news, as I sent out last week, the more imminent problem, which is now lack of availability for good quality investments that qualify for the program as well. So today, I'm gonna run through some basic slides for those that have those that are, shall we say, at the beginning of their Golden Visa journey, so you're fully aware of what the program is and how it works and who it's for. But the real focus for today is to give everyone a clear understanding, first of all, of the current state of affairs as far as the withdrawal of the program, and also to give you a clear update on what availability is available at this point in time for qualifying investments as well. But there'll be a Q&A session at the end. You'll see a little Q&A box just down at the bottom of the screen, so please feel free to ask any questions as we go through. Those will record in the box there, and I'll pick up those towards the end. I've also got some questions already sent in previous to the webinar, so yeah, drop them in. Hopefully get a lot out of this evening's call. And the main topics, so we're going to look at, first of all, who is the Golden Visa for? What is the process to obtain a European passport from start to finish? I'll have a look at the current qualifying investment options available in Portugal. I promised to show you how you can achieve the Golden Visa for less than 280,000, which is still possible at this point in time. And again, we'll have a look at the availability, and we'll cover off all the questions before we finish, and we've got until the hour to get through everything. If you've not logged in before for one of my webinars, or have not spoken in person, my name is Jason Swan. I'm one of the senior partners for Holborn Assets. Holborn Assets are, in fact, a wealth management company. We're not a Golden Visa company specifically. We're one of Europe's largest wealth management practices. We manage in excess of $3 billion between our 20 offices worldwide. And about 6 years back, we set up the Holborn Passport program, which is a service designed specifically around achieving residency and citizenship by way of investment. Of course, Portugal is today's topic, but it's not the only program that we're able to offer. There are different citizenship programs in different countries around the world. But today, of course, we're going to be focusing on Portugal, and in particular, the Golden Visa. Myself, I live in Portugal. I'm based in Albufeira on the south coast. I've been here now for around 2 years. Unfortunately, I'm much better with numbers than I am with languages, certainly the Portuguese language. So I'm still working on that. I've got a few years left to get my head around Portuguese before applying for my citizenship. But I'm pretty familiar with the area now. I'm a big fan of the south, where it's typically a little bit warmer. It's a very nice kind of beach town where I am, and a little less congested than the likes of Lisbon and Porto, which of course more built up and much more city centre type environment for those here in Portugal. But yeah, I'm about an hour and a half from the Spanish border. I lived in Malaga before I came to Portugal a couple of years back. I was in Malaga for 5 years as well. So very well travelled, roots down now in Portugal, and here I am. So hopefully I can answer any questions about anything generally moving to Portugal, whether it be on the numbers or whether it be generally around advice as to where to head towards. I'm also a fully qualified and regulated financial planner for clients moving into Europe. So any questions around taxation or savings and investments, or helping to plan your income and retirement when you get to Portugal, that's also the other part of my job, to make sure we do that as efficiently as possible. But without further ado, we'll jump in, and I'm going to share some slides, and we'll start at the top. If that's make sure we can get this to work. So 3, 2, 1. One again. Okay, there we go. So again, focusing on today, the Portugal Golden Visa. Okay, so what is the visa? So yeah, if you're not too familiar with what the Golden Visa is, it is Europe's most popular and successful citizenship program by investment. It was launched back in 2012 with a view to attract investment and immigration into Portugal. It is a tried and tested route to Europe, by way of holding the visa for 5 years, you can then apply for your Portuguese and European passport, at which point you have permission to live in any of the European states. The Golden Visa itself is a 2-year visa, so you have to renew after year 2, you renew again after year 4, and again after the 5th year, you can then apply for your citizenship. And at that point, you effectively get 27 passports all at the same time. There are various routes to getting a European passport. Not all of them are kind of tried and tested as such. Some of them tend to fade away after a little while, but the Portuguese visa has been around for quite some time. There's been over 11,000 successful citizenship applications now. My company, I'm proud to say, has done over 10% of the world's Golden Visa applications since the program was launched in 2012. And we have a 100% success rate on our applications as well. Generally for 2 reasons. We carry out a high amount of due diligence, both on the properties before they come to market. So we've already had them pre-approved to meet the criteria for the visa. And also we carry out a lot of due diligence on our clients as well before you part with different fees to make sure that your application is successful as well. The criteria for the visa is relatively straightforward, but we'll come on to that shortly as well. So with Portugal, why are people flocking to Portugal right now? Portugal has always been quite popular, I suppose, because it has the sunshine for 300 days a year. But I think as more and more people now are able to work remotely, as there's more kind of political issues in the world. Portugal tends to be a hotspot for various reasons, but some of the key reasons is that you get access to Portuguese healthcare, which is great. It's one of the best healthcare systems in the world. You also get access to Portuguese education as well, both for yourself and family. And yeah, you get to enjoy a very nice standard of living, depending on whereabouts in Portugal that you choose, whether it's down in the south with me, where it's a bit more of a relaxed atmosphere, whether you go to the city centre of Lisbon or towards north in Porto, or perhaps you can live out in more inland in Portugal, and perhaps have a very quiet destination all of your own, perhaps where you don't find anyone else at all. But you've got a bit of everything. But the main thing is you get all the benefits of a Portuguese citizen with the visa. You get exactly the same rights as what you would do if you was born in Portugal, other than you cannot vote and you cannot run for parliament. Other than that, you have everything you would need as if you was born here in the first place. I'm not going to go into too much detail on tax, but it is another big incentive for most, because Portugal has a very attractive tax regime for new residents, where once you become tax resident, and I just want to clarify that actually, that this is only when you become tax resident. The visa itself does not make you tax resident. The visa does not make any impact on your tax status at all. But when you move to Portugal, when you spend over 6 months of the year here, you will become tax resident. And at that point, it's important that you start to make plans or underway with your plans to make sure that you minimize the tax on your income, whatever income that may be. But the NHR briefly is a unique tax regime where you can have a very low rate of tax on certain incomes, such as rental income, dividend income. You can have a very low fixed rate of income tax on certain occupations as well. And there are also investment vehicles available where you can hold stocks and shares and assets of that nature and have up to a 60% reduction on your lifetime income from those assets as well. So the idea is you can enjoy the sunshine, and also you can enjoy the tax benefits as well as the healthcare and the education, all come part of the Golden Visa. So moving on, hopefully no one fell asleep talking about tax. Let's get into what we all came here for. So what is going on with the government right now? It all started in November time last year, October, November time. The Prime Minister announced that the Golden Visa is to be no more. It has served its purpose. It was launched, it did what it needed to do, and it is no longer required. So as of the end of last year, we kind of came to terms with the fact that it's not going to be around for too much longer. That aside, it was taken with a bit of a pinch of salt, because it's not the first time that Portugal has mentioned about withdrawing the programme. However, as of the 16th of February, it came up again, and the Prime Minister made a very clear announcement that the Portugal Golden Visa is going to end. which caused a little bit of panic. And the first stage, it took a little bit of time to digest what the process was and when that could happen and what happens if. And where we're at the moment is we don't currently have any dates as to when the program might be withdrawn. All we know for sure, relatively sure, is that it is going to end. The question is really a case of when that may be. So as of right now, as of the 16th of February, there is a public discussion before anything is changed, any law is changed. There must be a public discussion, and there is a preliminary draft of new laws issued by the Prime Minister, which is in public discussion. It was until today, the original date, but it's actually been extended by 2 weeks to make sure that all the municipalities of Portugal have their ability to give feedback on those proposed changes. Which is a good sign. It shows that the Prime Minister and the government is keen to make sure that they do find a solution which is in line with everybody's best interests and in all parts of Portugal. There are parts of Portugal that support the withdrawal of the visa. There are many parts of Portugal that do not want to end the Golden Visa. Of course, it's been a huge source of income for many different sectors, and it is part of a plan to solve the housing crisis, but there's a real question at the moment as to what real impacts the Golden Visa itself actually has on the housing crisis. It's commonly talked about as part of the reason why property prices have shot up so quickly in the past couple of years, but in reality accounts for a very, very small percentage of property sales in Portugal. So the withdrawal of the program is one of 16 potential changes to help solve the housing crisis. The other relevant talking point is around the renewal of visas, and very much targeted at residential property owners that have vacant property in Portugal as an incentive to make sure that they rent that property to provide more housing, more social housing, and there is an incentive to do it. It doesn't affect commercial property as such. It's more designed to try and get vacant properties on the market for people to be able to rent. But there's lots of talk, lots going on. We won't know any more about it until the 30th of this month. At that point, just bringing on a slide. So we're in the public discussion now until the end of March. At that point, we will have obviously the feedback will be in from the public. Parliament will then vote on what to do next, and they'll actually prepare the final draft of that change in law, considering the feedback they've had from the public, and then it will be sent to the president to be ratified. And there's a number of different outcomes that may happen from that point. All in all, at this stage, what we can say for sure is that there cannot be any change in law for quite some time just yet. And one thing worth clarifying is that the program is still fully active right now. New applications are being processed. There is various articles, headline selling articles, attention-grabbing articles right now to say the Golden Visa has been abolished. It's finished. It's no more. What next? Okay, the Golden Visa is still in place. Nothing has changed. There's been no change in law. There's not been any dates discussed as to when it may finish. It is the only kind of written information that we have right now is that preliminary draft, which is ultimately a summary of the Prime Minister's announcement back in February. So it's up to huge change. There's been a lot of negative feedback from many different sectors, a lot of backlash on the proposed changes so far. So we're still very much in the thick of what is the best way to solve the housing crisis. So there's no kind of panic just yet. We feel that if the program is voted to be closed, which it likely will be, if it is voted to be done as soon as possible, it would still be until kind of middle of May before the law can physically change. It is unconstitutional for anything to be changed retrospectively. So we need to get to the point, quite simply, to be able to submit an application before the change in law. You do not need to receive the visa. Okay, the visa process takes some time. However, the kind of safety point, if you like, is making sure that you have everything that you need to submit your application before the program is officially withdrawn. If we can do that, you have that reassurance of being protected by the current laws. Okay. If we are not able to submit the application before the withdrawal or before the changes in law, of course, you're going to be subject to whatever the situation is after that date. Currently, we have a process in place due to the facilities that Hull One has to be able to start the process and finish the process, well, at least as far as submitting your application, within as little as 3 weeks. So right now we are still accepting new applications because we are very happy that we can get those applications to submission before any potential changes in law. However, just to cover any abnormalities or anything generally, we also make sure that you are fully covered by keeping both your legal fees and any deposits that you've paid fully refundable in the event the program is withdrawn prior to being able to submit the application, or the property that you wish to purchase is no longer qualifies. So we take on the risk, although we see it as very, very little risk at this point. But the message is to proceed whilst you can, because we may very well be in the position now where this is everyone's last chance to apply for the Golden Visa. It's not going to be around for very long. I have been saying this for quite some time. That time may be nigh. And starting the process as soon as possible is ideal. Although we can get things through as quickly as 3 weeks, that is as long as everything goes according to plan and there's no delays, and we're able to get all the documents, the translation done, and the opening of bank accounts, and things like this. So do not delay is my advice. Don't rush into any decisions. Make sure that you have all the information and you're confident with what you're investing into. But take the time whilst you still can to make a decision as to whether or not the visa is something that you wish to do. Okay, so that's where we stand at the moment. I'll come on to the availability shortly, but let's just go back a step to the basics of who qualifies for the visa. So the way this works, where the visa works, okay, one person, the main applicant, submits the application, invests in a qualifying property, and they can apply for the visa also for their dependent family members. And a dependent can be seen as, first of all, a spouse, whether married or unmarried, as long as living together. You can include children up to the age of 18 or older if they're still in education. And you can include parents as well, dependent parents, or those above the age of 65, for which you do not need to prove dependency, as it is automatically assumed from that age. But the idea is that you can bring out 3 generations with the Golden Visa, and all of which enjoy the same benefits as we talked about before. So yeah, there's again, any questions on that, please just put a question in the box and we'll pick up on it shortly. But anyone that doesn't have an EU passport can apply and include their family members, as we've noted there. Okay, so properties, what qualifies for the visa? This is something that does change, and there's different ways, different things you can invest into to qualify. By far the most popular option for about 90 to 95% of Portugal's applications at the moment is to be done through real estate. But it's not the only option, and I'll detail those in a moment. But if you do want to invest into property and qualify for the visa, then you must follow these guidelines. Now the standard, well, let me go back a step. As of the beginning of last year, the last time the government made a change to the programme was in January 2022. And the change was that you can no longer purchase residential property in any of the main cities, such as Porto, Lisbon, or basically anywhere in the Algarve that has any tourism. Instead, you now must buy a commercial property, or in other words, a completely hands-off investment, rather than somewhere for you to live in or ultimately to move to. So that generally breaks it down into 2 categories. You can invest into you can buy a share in a hotel, or you can buy an apartment or a property within a hotel complex, but it must be a commercial property. Now, the standard price point to qualify for the visa is €500,000. And there are ways to reduce that. First of all, is you can buy in a low density area. And if you do so, you get a 20% discount, which brings the minimum to 400,000. Now, the only way to reduce that capital further is by way of investing into a commercial renovation project where the building is over 30 years old, okay, in which the minimum comes down to 350,000. But if you can do that in a low density area, there are ways that you can get the visa for as little as 280,000. Now, we've built a portfolio of properties that we're happy to recommend in each of those price points. As a general rule of thumb, you'll find that the closer that you invest to 500,000, the more profitable the investment is as a standalone investment. However, the closer you invest to 280, you'll find it's not as profitable, but the big plus is, of course, a lot less capital to get the passports. So it's finding a balance between those two. But yeah, we have built a portfolio of properties with good, sustainable developers in each of those price points. Now, if you don't want to go into property, there are other routes as well. Again, at the beginning of last year, the minimum went from 350 to 500,000 to invest through an investment fund or a venture capital fund. You can choose from a range of investment funds. You can have low risk, medium risk, or adventurous risk funds, all of which vary as far as past returns. The caveat of which is, though, that the fund must have a 60% allocation to Portuguese assets to qualify. You cannot invest in any fund. So you generally find that the returns from the investment funds that qualify are a little subdued compared to what you may invest into without those restrictions because of its reliance upon having to invest so heavily in Portugal, but it's still a viable option. And there's different investment funds to choose from. A venture capital fund is another route. There's some wild, and I've seen some wild and wacky venture capital funds popping up all over the place in Portugal, where you can get involved with setting up your own farm or wind, renewable energy in a wind farm, or things like this. Anything to the benefit of Portugal if you have an interest in any particular sector, and setting up more of a different risk-rated type investment. There are different venture capital funds to consider also. Bearing in mind with both investment funds and venture capital, they have a different type of risk to property. They're not always asset-backed. The returns can be variable. And in a worst-case scenario, once you have received your passport, the last thing that you want is to have the fund having reduced in value to prevent you getting that money back out again. So liquidity is an important factor if you go down that route as well. If you do want to go down the fund, I'm happy to show you some different funds that are available. So please ask. The other option, you can invest in Portugal's scientific research, should you have an interest in that matter, from 500,000. You can also set up or purchase an existing Portuguese registered business and employ a certain number of staff for a certain period of time. Or you can just simply transfer €1.5 million into a Portuguese bank account, if you wish. But I don't think I've met anybody that's done that so far. Portuguese banks generally don't pay a lot of interest, nor would it be the best advice to hold such a large sum just generally in the Portuguese banking system. It's not quite as the likes of the UK and in the US, for example. And unless there was a real need to hold so much cash in a bank account, there's generally more profitable options and lower risk, in my opinion, as well. So, but that's a different route. So hopefully that all makes sense, and I've covered that all off well there. Again, any questions, just pop it in the box and I shall get onto those shortly. Okay. Go next. Okay, the process. Bit of a busy slide, this one, but I suppose it's a busy process, so I'll explain what we're looking at. So this shows you exactly what's involved between now and getting the visa in your hand. And the first step is to find an investment. You need to choose something that you want to invest into that meets the criteria for the visa. Once you have found the investment, okay, first thing that we will do is set up your Portuguese tax number. Secondly, to set up a Portuguese bank account. You can't really do a great deal without at least the tax number in Portugal. That's the first port of call. Shortly thereafter, you'll meet with a lawyer. You'll complete the purchase or the investment itself, and you'll look to complete the deeds on the property or invest into the different routes that you choose. Once you have those three boxes ticked of bank account, tax number, and qualifying investment, we can then look to submit your application for the visa. And that's where we want to get to. That's the main kind of safety point, if you like, to get to before the withdrawal of the program. Just to submit the application, not receive the visa, just to submit. You're then in the system, and we have your processing number, and then we have a bit of time to then go through the next steps. Thereafter, okay, you will be left in peace, really. We kind of take it from there. My team will do the full process on your behalf, and we will just let you know when you have your meeting scheduled with CEF. And CEF is the Portuguese Immigration Office, if you like. And around about 6 months after the process of applying for the visa, you'll need to fly into Portugal, which is bad news, unfortunately, but you'll have to come to Portugal and go to the CEF office with the lawyer to do your fingerprints and your photo for your visa card. Hopefully not long thereafter, we'll then get the card, as will look a little bit like this one here down at the bottom. In total, from the time of submitting the application to actually getting the visa in hand, at the moment is about 12 months. Last year, there was a real backlog of applications when the law changed, and CEF wasn't accepting new applications for, I think, about 3 months in the end. So there was a real big delay. But at the moment, things are much faster. It's taken about a year, but that may be a little bit longer, again, because of the impending changes and the uplift in demand for properties and the visa applications over the past couple of weeks. So I would say somewhere between, let's say, 12 to 15 months as a realistic expectation to get the visa in hand. Okay, so other than that, after the 12 months, okay, so at that point you have your visa. You have full access to Portugal. You are ultimately a Portuguese resident, and you have all the benefits as we covered before. And the visa is a 2-year visa, okay, for everyone that we've included. And after year 2, we will need to do the renewal. Now, recently, the renewal process has been much simplified. It used to consist of having to come back to Portugal and go to the CEF office, which is nothing short of quite soul-destroying on your holiday to have to go back to CEF. However, it's now an online process, so you can do that very quickly, very easily, and it's a straightforward process to renew the visa for a further 2 years. We do that again after year 4 for a further 2 years. But once we've held the visa for 5 years in total, we can then apply for step 2 and step 3, which is your permanent residency and the citizenship. So they're both kind of the same thing, but for some of our clients, their home country won't allow dual citizenship. So instead, we simply apply for permanent residency as opposed to the passport. But by default, we apply for both. You just need to make sure that you pick up some Portuguese, hopefully a little easier than what I have so far, over those 5 years, because there will be an equivalent to kind of a high school exam, both written and spoken, to be able to apply for your residency, permanent residency at that time. Most of our clients are generally able to kind of crash course that study within kind of 3 to 4 months to be able to pass. There's nothing too taxing, but yeah, you'll need to get the books out at some point and learn some of the language. But that's it. That's the magic moment when if you pass the test and once you've submitted the application, you will receive the passport, and you then officially have the 5th best passport in the world, with visa-free access to over 187 countries in the world, and be able to live in any of the 27 EU member states as well. which is the ultimate goal. So we're alongside you right from the beginning, right through to that point in 5 to 6 years time from now. There's a lot of moving parts to get to that stage. I ultimately work as, you could see me as like the project manager, if you like, and within my team you'll have somebody to help submit the application for your tax number, help with the bank account. You'll have a lawyer in place for the property purchase. There'll be, of course, the developer or the seller or the investment manager. And there was someone to take care of the translation. There was someone to accompany it to the office to get the visa with SEF and for your biometrics. And yeah, you'll always have a point of contact throughout. We try to make what is quite a complicated process as simple as we can. And yeah, like I say, we're very successful with it. We've done a high percentage of all Portuguese golden visas, and we have still maintained our 100% success rate on our applications as well. Okay, so that's all nice and clear, and you now know what's involved with the visa, how we get there, and what it is. As a quick recap, first step to find an investment that meets the criteria that you wish to invest into. We start the process, and within, well, at the moment, as soon as possible. It says like in 1 to 3 months. Realistically, we want to be trying to get everything done within let's say 4 to 6 weeks at the moment. And then we have around 12 months currently to actually get the approval, actually receive the visa. We'll renew that then after year 2, or renew again after year 4. And after it's been held for 5 years, we will then apply for the passport. Okay, so again, any questions at all on the process, on what the visa is, about who can be included on the family, what kind of properties qualify? I hope that's all nice and clear, but anything I've missed, please just have a question in the Q&A and we shall pick up on that shortly. Okay, so next stage then is, as we say, it's the kind of main focus for today. If we can get this to move on a slide, come on. There we go. Is the most pressing thing at the moment, since the announcement a couple of weeks back. I mean, fear always triggers an influx in activity, and there has been a lot of panic. People are rushing to buy property at the moment. We've done more applications in the past 3 weeks than I think we've done since the beginning of the year, you know, we are still taking on new applications, but the problem that we suffered, which we didn't really see coming, is the fact that there's no new properties coming to the market. Since the announcement and with the imminent withdrawal of the program, the developers have made it quite clear that they have no intentions to release any further developments based around the program, because it might be withdrawn. They're not going to build, they're not going to release new developments if they don't know they're going to have the time to be able to sell them. So the end result is that what we have, once it's gone, and everything has been selling. And the real concern is that I genuinely feel that come the end of next week, there won't be any properties left to invest into, as far as good properties, shall we say. We are not an estate agent. We're not, and I'm not sat here saying that there's no properties in Portugal that will qualify after next week. But as far as investing with a commercial property that meets the criteria, with good returns, with a good developer, you know, the kind of investments that everyone's going for, those will be sold out by the end of next week, realistically. So, yeah, which is disappointing really, because normally we generally have a new development every month coming to market, but yeah, it was difficult to say. I think unless the program is extended until the end of this year, which is possible, that's not kind of what we're all hoping for, then there may be new developments to come onto the market. But at the moment, the odds are that, you know, there will be some kind of grace period for the withdrawal, but it could be very short. It could be 1 month. It could be somewhere between 1 to 3 months. Ireland withdrew their golden visa not so long back, and they gave a 3-month grace period. And if it's anything similar to that, it's just realistically a big risk for developers to launch a new hotel or build consistently in line with the program, and sell it in the time that they have. So my advice is, yeah, if you can find something that you like, please don't hesitate to ask any questions. There's no kind of major panic at the moment, but they are on the last legs. So please do jump in with any questions. So we'll jump in. These are, as of today, as of right now, there is some availability at each of the developments that I'm going to show to you. I'll highlight the ones that have been fully sold now, but in the main, there is still at least one or two units left at each of the developments. So we'll start at 280. 280 is the minimum investment. So for that, we must find a property that is in a low density area where the building is over 30 years old and is going through a full government approved renovation. And there's an example of that in Beja. Bad pronunciation of that, but Beja is inland Portugal, in between kind of Lisbon and the Algarve. And there is a hotel being refurbished, renovated by Portugal's biggest property developer. And it's going to be a Holiday Inn when it's all finished. It'll look exactly as you see in those photos there. The proposition for which is that you can buy a share in the hotel. You can buy a share for 280,000 and you can become a co-owner of the hotel. And your name is on the deeds to the property along with the other investors. And the developer will offer to pay the initial property taxes. Okay, for those that have bought in Portugal before, you'll find there's taxes generally around 5 to 10% of the property price. However, in this event, the developer pays those taxes on your behalf. So it's a good saving up front. Unfortunately, there isn't any rental income at 280, but there is a 100% buyback clause, which means that once you receive your passports in 5 to 6 years' time, the share is sold back, and it has to be sold back. It's mandatory both for you as the buyer and for the seller, and it's purchased back at the same price. There's no interest, there's no rental income. It's a very simple option to get the passport. It's money in and money back out when it's all done. And during that time, the developer will allow you to stay for 7 days in any of their hotels in Portugal. They have quite a healthy portfolio of different 4- and 5-star hotels across Portugal, not just Holiday Inns, but other hotel chains as well. And yeah, it's a very simple route to the visa. Next up, the Wyndham Hotel. So this is officially the lowest capital route to the passport of any investment choice in Portugal. Of course, a huge hotel chain, being that of the Wyndham. It's going to be a Wyndham Gardens hotel. And when it's all done, it will look as you see there in the photos. Okay, it's in a town called Alcoçar do Sol, which is about 1 hour south of Lisbon. It's right on the waterfront on the estuary. It will be a very nice development when it's all finished. The proposition is very similar to what we looked at before. However, an extra incentive with this one, where again you can buy a share. You can buy a share for 280,000 euros to become a co-owner of the development. And again, it's a substantial developer that's been around for a long time with a handsome portfolio in and out of Portugal. The taxes are all paid. Again, the buyback is in place for once the passports are received. So you don't need to worry about putting it on the market or paying estate agents or legal fees when you come to sell. It's very simple transfer of ownership back to the developer at that point. However, the big incentive with this one is they are the only developer, it's the only project I've ever seen in Portugal at this price point that pays an upfront rental income of 30,000 euros. So you're effectively buying the share at 250 and selling it back at 280. So a very healthy profit margin up front, and that comfortably covers the costs involved, the government fees, and the legal cost to get the passports. So this is all. It's actually you actually get paid to apply for the passports, depending on the family size. But I think up to a family size of 2, you actually receive the passports and still make a profit on the end of that. The passports cost nothing at all. Whereas the likes of the inn that we looked at a moment ago, it doesn't have that 30,000 paid up front, so there is still a cost involved for each of the passports. But again, the developer will let you stay for 7 days in any of the hotels. in Portugal. So obviously, whilst it's being renovated, you can choose from any of the hotels. You can choose from any of the hotels at any point, really. So yeah, solid option. It's selling incredibly quickly. This is the go-to option at the moment for just a minimum capital investment to get the passports. It's the only development in Portugal that pays that upfront rental with a solid developer with a guaranteed buyback. As of today's date, there is still some availability. There was, if I remember rightly, there was around 10 units available as of towards the back end of yesterday. So we're okay for now, but it will sell. We're not the only company selling this one. Every other development is exclusive to Holborn. This one is not, so we're not in control as to exactly when it will sell out, but we should have at least until next week, all being well. Okay, the yellow tulip, this one, I think this one has been sold out now. We sold the last unit, I think, today. However, I will go through it anyway because there has been a rush of reservations recently. The developer has been very strict on making sure deposits are paid. So there is a chance that one unit may pop back up at some point. So if this is of interest, please do let me know anyway, and we'll make sure that as one pops back up for sale, we can put your name down for it. But this hotel is already built. Okay, it's in Alvor, about half an hour away from where I live in the Algarve, and it's a fully operational and active 4-star hotel. It's already on Booking.com, and it is a building that's over 30 years old in a low-density area, and the renovation has just started in January this year, due to be finished later this year, possibly early 2024. And when it's all finished, it'll be, again, still a 4-star hotel, but as new, all-inclusive 4-star hotel. It is at the moment very run down. It's very kind of year 2000, and it is definitely in need of a lick of paint. But when it's all done, it will be rebranded as the Yellow Tulip. It's calling it the Yellow Alvor Garden, I think. And the difference with this one is that instead of buying a share in the hotel, you actually buy an individual apartment. So you actually choose the exact apartment that you buy, which means you have a little more control over when you sell it. But overall, it's a similar proposition. The apartments were priced between 280 and 295, depending on the floor and which side of the hotel. The developer again pays the upfront taxes on your behalf. And this one has an optional buyback, which means that instead of being forced to sell the property back in 5 years, you have the option, whether or not you'd like to. You can actually cancel the agreement after year 4 if you like, but you have basically 4 years to assess property prices to work out whether or not you'd like to keep it or whether or not you'd like to sell it on the open market. If you do sell it, then, so I'm just going to grab my charger. If you decide to keep it, then the rental income kicks in from year 6. You get a rental income which averages around about 5% per year from the 6th year. So you likely will have at least 1 year's rental income regardless, because by the time you have the visa and hold then the property for 5 years, you're probably going to be coming to that 6th year. Yeah, you have the option to keep it, which is great if property prices go up in the next 5 years like they have done in the last 5 years. And you have that option of an income as well. So also you can stay there for 2 weeks every year instead of just the 1 week, which is a plus as well. So yeah, it's a different option. Like I say, it is fully subscribed at the moment, but I'm sure one will come for sale. There was about 110 apartments, I think, in total. So yeah, let me know if you have an interest in the Yellow Tulip. Okay. So as we go kind of higher up the food chain, as it were, on the price, okay, as we get to kind of 350, I don't personally think there's a huge incentive at 350. I think it makes more sense to go in a minimum capital or to go in at 500, of course, where affordable and have maximum profitability. But there are some options in between. There's a really nice development at Lisbon Airport. And this will be finished next year. And again, you can buy a share in the hotel. The only difference with this and the first one is that the share is 350,000 as opposed to 280, but there is a small return of 3% per year from when the hotel is built as well. So just whether or not it's worth investing that extra capital for that 3%. There's no preference, of course, but the taxes are still all paid. You still have a guaranteed buyback. You still get to stay for 7 days in any of the hotels in Portugal. So yeah, it's still a very solid option to choose from. If you said to me, I want to be in Porto, I want to invest in Porto, there is a nice development, a really nice part of that Porto. It's actually self-contained apartments. And once all finished, there's 26 apartments in total. There is a guaranteed rental income of 3.5% for 5 years. Again, it's a full title deed ownership, so it's not a hotel share. And there is 7 days stay included per year as well. So a solid option in Porto. I don't think there's a huge incentive for this one right now, as there's no buyback. So you would have to sell it on the open market. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but you've got to factor in the cost of things like an estate agent and or realtor for our American viewers, and of course the legal fees involved in selling. I think it's good to have that buyback just in case, but a good option in Porto nonetheless. The Pelican has sold out now as well, unfortunately. Again, if it's something of interest, just drop me a message and I'll make sure that we're keeping an eye on anything that comes back up for sale this week. But the Pelican sold particularly well. The options were to buy 1 bedroom for 400,000 or a 2-bed at 450. And the incentive with this one is that the developer pays a rental income of 5.2% per year on the 1 beds, 4% per year on the 2 beds, and they pay 6 years rental income up front as well. So it actually allows you to buy a 1 bed instead of 400 at 306, or a 2 bed at 369 with a buyback of 450, 400. So a very clear profit margin between the two. Again, it's an optional buyback, and you can stay here for 4 weeks every year as well. So very clear profit margin of, again, 1 bed buying at 306, selling at 400, 2 bed buying at 369, selling at 450. But that's Pelican. This one, nice development in the centre of Lisbon. Okay, consists of kind of 3 and 4 bedroom properties. The prices start at 512,000. This is kind of the highest capital option at the moment. The rental income is 3 to 6% per year if you choose to have a fixed rental, depending on which villa that you buy. You can have a variable kind of profit share, which works out generally 7 to 10% per year, or you can actually choose to live in this property. It's one of very few commercial premises that you can live in full time. Of course, you sacrifice the rental income at that point. There's no buyback. There's no upfront rental payment on this one either. But yeah, if you do have a taste for living in Lisbon and qualifying with that property as well for the visa, then this may be a good shout. Last but not least, I've sent an email out this morning. This one again is unfortunately fully sold out, but there has been a client of mine just this afternoon, which for personal reasons has no longer been able to proceed with the purchase right at the last moment. So there is an apartment for sale, and it's a 1-bedroom apartment. Okay, this hotel is already built. Okay, it's exactly how it looks as it is in this photo, apart from the grass is now properly grown in. And the apartments at the bottom, sorry, I tell a lie, it's not fully sold out. There are studio apartments still, and there is currently one bedroom that's come back for sale. All the apartments are sea and pool facing. The proposition, okay, the idea is it qualifies at 500,000. This one, it's not in a low density area. Or going through any kind of renovation. It's just a new build property. It's a purpose-built 5-star golf and spa resort on a PGA golf course, and it is officially the most profitable Golden Visa investment in Portugal right now. well, it's very straightforward. You have to qualify at 500,000. So you can either buy 2 studios at 350 each, or you can buy a 1-bedroom at 500,000. The developer pays an annual rental income of 7% per year before tax, and 5.25% net of taxes. So very high rental return, and they also pay 5 years rental income up front as well, which significantly reduces the capital you need to purchase the property. So similar to the Pelican proposition we looked at a moment ago, with this one, you can buy 2 studios for 500,000 with a buyback at 700. Okay, that is the most profitable option. Naturally requires more capital, but it's a very clear exit of a €200,000 profit, which very comfortably covers the cost of the visa and the passports, and leaves you with a very healthy profit as a return on the investment as well. There's not many investments out there at the moment that are asset-backed in property with a rental income fixed at 7% per year. Full stop. And of course, you have the buyback, so you don't have that concern about if property prices go down if you compare to, for example, with an investment fund. You're going to sell at least the purchase price, and you have that rental income paid up front. The 1-beds, you can buy at 500, but the capital is only 368, again, with a buyback at 500,000. So yeah, this if money was no object, if a budget is there, this is the most profitable, but naturally it requires more capital to invest in this compared to the options at 280. You still have a guaranteed buyback. Again, it's an optional buyback, so you can choose whether or not to sell it back at the 500 or 700 later in the process. And you can stay here for 6 weeks every year as well. So that's the last incentive. For another client of mine, we did we arranged to have 3 weeks per year, but for 2 apartments, so they could come out and play golf with the family as well. So yeah, that's the real overdose. So just to stress, there is literally one bedroom apartment. I want to make it really clear, it is on a first come, first served basis. The development was sold out early last week. The studios are still, I think there's still 4 or 5 studios left at last glance. But of course, that is 700,000 to qualify, or 500,000 with the rental. The 1-bed is only 368. So if you do have an interest in that, please do message straight away, and we'll speak as soon as possible to go through the costings for your family. But that's everything really. I don't want to kind of lay it on too thick about the availability, but we are at the crunch time now with the program. The program is not going. The program being withdrawn is not the first priority. It is just finding a property that you like at this stage, and then hopefully we have a bit more time when the program is withdrawn. But other than that, I hope that was helpful. I hope I've covered everything. So we've got some questions. We'll jump in. Hi there, Mo. Nice to see you. So Mohammed, hi there. I visited Portugal last week and met some consultants, and all mentioned that no clear news until now. Also mentioned that applications are on hold with no progress. Also heard that people invested for Golden Visa now stuck because they're not able to use this property for purchasing rental income. Got a lot of bad news, Mohammed. A lot of bad news, haven't you? So, yeah, look, we're aware of these articles. There's various articles out there. There's many copywriters that don't understand the laws and the process involved to actually change these things. What's really important to understand is that nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. Okay, regardless of what is out there, whatever is printing newspapers at the moment, nothing has changed. There is a process involved to change the law. Okay, and that has not changed. Nor is there a date in mind or a date been set as to when those laws may change. So all we are concerned about right now is submitting applications before that can happen, and then you have no concerns thereafter. If you want to go into more detail, if anyone would like actually my full commentary on what is going on with the government and the process and what actually are the next steps, I won't go into it now in the webinar, but again, just drop me an email And I'll give you a full breakdown on exactly what happens from here and the possible outcomes and exactly how to kind of structure your plan of action. But yeah, hopefully that helps, Mohammed. Like I said, nothing has changed for now. It is business as usual. Anonymous, okay. Thank you for letting me know that. Mohammed again, okay. Other big issue with opening bank accounts. Yes, there is delays with bank accounts. We've managed to change things slightly, Mohammed, where we now can give 3 options to speed up the process. You're very right that opening bank accounts remotely is very difficult. There's a huge influx of new applications, and it is taking at least 6 weeks to do that, regardless of which bank that you approach. So to speed things up, we offer 2 further options. Okay, you can fly into Portugal and you can set up an account on the same day, should you wish. That's one option. And we can actually complete the process within 2 to 3 weeks on that basis. The tax number takes literally 2 days to get the tax number. If you get your bank account set up, it's really then just a case of meeting with your lawyer and transferring the funds to your bank account to complete the deed. And it can be very, very quick. But if you do sort of bank account remotely, it takes some time. And when we don't recommend it, we feel that if the program is withdrawn sooner rather than later, then you don't want to be running that risk waiting for a bank account to set up. So our recommendation is either flying to Portugal, or what we're now doing is we have an agreement with the law firms in place where you're able to use the lawyer's escrow account. You do not need to set up a bank account now to complete the purchase of the property. Still good practice to set up a bank account. However, you do not need to do that to be able to complete the purchase and submit your application. So that is something that we've introduced just over the past week or so. I think very unique to Holborn as well. But yes, you do not need to wait in line for a bank account now, Mohammed, due to being able to use the lawyer's escrow account to make that transfer to the purchase. But any other questions on that, please do ask, drop me an email, and we'll go through that. We can speak on a Zoom call separately. Hi there, Calvin. I'm in Canada. Can you tell me who is the Canadian developer of the Lisbon property? I can. It is Mercan Property Group, or that one in particular. They have a Canadian heritage, if you like. So yes, Mercan is the property developer. Is there a problem with holding a permanent residency card indefinitely rather than full citizenship? This would be my preference rather than renouncing my current citizenship. There's no problem at all. That Kelvin, it is completely fine to not apply for citizenship. It does not impact anything like the buyback agreements or the rental income. It still allows you all the same rights. Okay, you still have permanent residency within the EU. You don't have to renew the visa any longer. There is no detriment to doing that. If you cannot if you cannot have dual citizenship, then it's fine. That's exactly what it's there for. So you can still have permanent residency without having to sacrifice your passport. So that's no problem. Okay, so on the project with 100% buyback guarantee, it sounds like Portuguese residency or citizenship can be obtained. Sorry, I got a stutter. At no cost, but wondering if you can confirm this. Pretty much, Calvin. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the development. It's not the buyback that kind of, well, I suppose in some developments, yeah, that is correct. So you just need to choose a development which is profitable. Obviously, the likes of the Holiday Inn and the Yellow Tulip at 280, they don't pay a rental income, so you don't have that influx of capital up front to be able to cover all these costs. And generally, you would expect to have a cost at the end for the passports. Same with the Lisbon Hotel. The likes of the Royal Obidos, the Pelican, and Wyndham Hotel, they do all pay an upfront rental, way in excess of the cost of a passport. So, yeah, with the buyback option, that's correct. So that's the whole idea. If you can get an investment that pays for everything, you're doing well. You know, that's the idea. So, Yeah, that's the idea. You don't. Some of the developments is not a mandatory buyback either. If property prices do go up in the next 5 years, then you might decide not to sell it back at the same price and sell it for more. But we don't know what's going to happen with property prices, so I wouldn't bank on them necessarily being higher in 5 years. But even if you sell it for 500, you've at least made that predetermined profit to cover all your costs as well. So yeah, so I hope that answers your question, Calvin. But if you drop me a message, you've got my email address there on the screen. I will send to you the full cost breakdown for the developments which you like, and I'll clearly break down the cost of the property, the legal fees, the government fees, the rental income, and you'll have a clear breakdown of what capital and what profit there is at the end as well. Okay, so that's all the questions I've got from our webinar so far. Thank you for those. A few questions came in before the webinar. If there's anyone that you'd like to post, please do so. Please just drop your questions in the Q&A. That's what we're here for. We've got kind of 5 minutes or so to finish through some last questions. What have we got? So when would the property investment route be materialized? I'm looking for a property when I visit Tavira in May with a value of 1 million. It's a tough question, that one, Jeff, because well, first of all, we need to establish what you're buying, because from what you've said there, I don't think that property will qualify for the visa because it's in Tavira. It sounds like it's a residential property, so it doesn't matter what the value is. It's not going to qualify for the visa. So I would say send me some details on that one. I'll confirm whether or not it can qualify, and obviously just be mindful of the time that we've got left to submit your application as well. Hi there, Mo. How to open a bank account and have a deposit toward the Golden Visa? Okay, the bank account we do on your behalf, Mo. Okay, nothing to do there. Regarding a deposit towards the Golden Visa, if you're referring there to putting a deposit down and borrowing with a bank, unfortunately that can't be done. It must be a cash purchase, at least for the amount of which it qualifies at. So if it qualifies at 280, it must be cash for 280. If at 350, if at 500, etc. If you buy a property at 1 million that qualifies at 500, then you can do 500 cash and 500 mortgage, but the qualifying price must be done as a minimum in cash. Hopefully that helps, but again, send me an email if you have any further questions there, Mel. Hi there, Russell. I'm retired and live on a limited income. How can I get a Portugal passport for less than 280,000? Okay, well, if you've not worked it out, thank you for reminding me, Russell, but the Wyndham Hotel. The Wyndham Hotel is how you get a Golden Visa for less than 280,000, because you buy the share effectively at 250, because it gives you that 30,000 immediate cash back with a buyback at 280. So that actually covers all the costs involved with getting the Golden Visa, and ultimately you will spend less than 280,000 and have achieved passports as well. If you like any further questions, any information on the Wyndham, Russell, please just drop me an email and I shall send the cost down. Just let me know how many family members you'd like to include, and I'll give you that full cost breakdown as well. Hi there, Stephen. Are there still good investment opportunities, and where, if not, what are the other options available to the Golden Visa? Okay, well, we've covered off the investment options. As far as what I've shown to everyone so far, these are our recommendations. Okay, we, being a wealth management practice with $3 billion being our main focus, shall we say, we tread very carefully before recommending anything as far as different property projects in the likes of Portugal, where you don't have to go too far to find one-man bands and building companies that disappear and so on and so forth. So we have carried out a lot of due diligence on these developers before we market them, and that goes as far as their track record, as far as their cash flow, as far as their current assets, their ability to repay buybacks. All these things are taken into account to make sure that we can honor those incentives and put our name to it before we market them. So these are, as far as we're concerned, the best investments in Portugal that are solid with well-known developers. If outside of what we're recommending here, Then I don't think you'll find a lot of commercial properties now left for sale. Residential properties, inland, you'll still have property for sale, but there won't be much of an investment element. If you do buy inland, then generally you'll find that there isn't the same tourism or the same rental income. So it might just be, if you can find a property for you to live in, could be another option, but I wouldn't say you will find a good investment opportunity inland as such. All that helps. Again, any further questions, Stephen, drop me an email. Okay, so I think that's everything for today. If anyone has any last minute questions, please drop them in. I think I've covered everything as best as I can. Hopefully everyone has found that information helpful. I do have some availability for meetings really from Tuesday next week. If you do have any questions in the meantime, please ask. Always happy to chat. If you want to book a personal Zoom meeting for one day next week, then again, just let me know your availability. Any information regarding Portugal, as far as taxation is concerned, or any brochures, the pricing, anything along these lines, please do get in touch. I will continue to keep everyone up to date as things progress. And if there's any relevant news or any new property developments that do come to market, I always try to be as proactive as I can and make sure that you're in the loop. But yeah, other than that, thank you everyone for your time. There's no more questions. So yeah, have a nice evening or a good morning in some cases, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.